She walked into that mansion by mistake. She walked out holding a secret that could destroy an empire. Lila Monroe was just a waitress trying to make ends meet in Austin, Texas. But one night, a mistake or maybe fate put her in the path of Logan Whitmore, heir to a billion-dollar ranching empire. She lied, pretended to be someone she wasn't, and unknowingly changed the life of a man who had everything except freedom. This is the story of a fake identity, an impossible romance, and a choice no one saw coming. Because sometimes, the greatest truth is born from the most unlikely lie. Asterisk. The music pulsed through the air like the outside world didn't exist. Golden lights bathed the ballroom of the Fontainebleau Hotel in Miami, where hundreds of guests toasted champagne like life was a permanent luxury holiday. Lila Monroe was there, but not as a guest. She wore black, carried trays, and reminded herself this was just another shift. Just another night catering to the kind of people who would never remember her name. But everything changed when a drunk woman bumped into her and dropped something in the dressing room, a navy blue silk gown and a Chanel clutch with VIP passes. Inside, Lila looked around. No cameras. Something inside her, curiosity, maybe exhaustion from being invisible, made her move. Within minutes, she changed outfits, styled her hair differently, slipped into heels, and walked through the private event door like she belonged. Inside, beneath designer suits and polished smiles, she met Logan Whitmore. He wasn't like the others. Tall, with a relaxed charm, Logan wore a linen blazer with no tie and spoke with a smooth Texas accent. He had one of those smiles that seemed to read your soul, and somehow, he chose Lila to talk to. "You don't seem like the rest of these people," he said. She laughed nervously. "Because I'm not. That's a good thing. I'm surrounded by lies here." Ironic. But she didn't laugh. Lila told him she was the daughter of a tech investor from Austin, claimed she hated social media, that she was only there because a friend dragged her along. Every word took her deeper into a lie she had no idea how to escape. But Logan believed her. And more than that, he was drawn to her. Before leaving, he handed her a card. "I'm heading back to Texas tomorrow, but I'd really like to see you again. Call me." Lila tucked the card away like it was a diamond she could barely hold on to. She never imagined that pretending for one night would change the fate of an entire family, and maybe her own. Lila stared at Logan's business card like it was a ticking bomb. She returned to Austin the same day by bus, hiding the stolen dress in a plastic bag. Deep down, she knew this wouldn't end well. But the phone rang 2 days later. It was him. "Hey, mysterious Texan, you gonna make me cross the whole state just to see you again?" His voice had a warmth to it. An easygoing invitation, yet full of promise. She could have hung up, told the truth, disappeared. But she didn't. She says yes. And a few days later, she was boarding a plane for the first time in her life, headed to Waco, Texas, where Logan lived on a ranch straight out of a movie. When she arrived, it felt surreal. The main house was massive, surrounded by golden fields, wild horses, and a view that took her breath away. Uniformed staff, the smell of leather and aged wood, and the piercing gaze of Logan's father, Robert Whitmore, who looked her up and down. "You're a friend of Logan's?" "Yes, sir. We met in Miami." He didn't smile. At dinner, Lila realized she was in a world she didn't understand. Conversations about land acquisitions, stock prices, agricultural politics. She pretended to follow, smiled when appropriate, and dodged direct questions. But Logan looked captivated. He told stories, poured wine, looked at her like she was the only woman in the world. That night, alone in the guest room, Lila stared at herself in the mirror. What was she doing? A downtown Austin waitress, pretending to be part of the Texan elite? It was madness, a dangerous game. But a part of her, the same part that stole that dress, didn't want to stop. Because for the first time, someone saw Lila not as a servant, but as a woman worth listening to, looking at, desiring, and that was addictive. The Texas sun rose with an almost arrogant strength, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Lila woke up to the sound of horses in the stables, and the strong aroma of freshly brewed coffee coming from the kitchen. She walked downstairs. Cautiously, wearing clothes Logan had arranged to be left in her room, expensive, elegant pieces she'd never even touched before. She felt like an impostor, but also like someone on the verge of something big. On the porch, Logan was already waiting with a smile and 2 coffees in hand. "Today I show you my world," he said, and he did. They spent hours horseback riding through the fields, visiting ranch workers, exploring every corner of the land that seemed to stretch on forever. Lila listened, watched, absorbed it all. Logan was different here. Away from the parties, he was a real man, boots dusty with earth, soul restless. "Do you really want to stay here forever?" she asked, staring into the endless horizon. He took a deep breath. "I don't know. Sometimes it feels like I was born into a destiny I never chose." It was the first crack. That night, during dinner with the family, the mood was tenser. Robert talked about mergers, contracts, and inheritance like life was a business deal. Lila tried to stay neutral, but she noticed the judgmental glances from Logan's stepmother, Claire, a woman cold as marble. After dinner, Claire cornered her in the hallway. "You're pretty smart, but you know this world isn't yours, don't you?" Lila didn't answer. She just smiled. But inside, the ground beneath her feet shook. Back in her room, she opened the hidden laptop in her suitcase. She had to research, learn, study that family, that story, that fortune, because the more time she spent there, the deeper she got, and the harder it would be to leave. The ranch looked peaceful on the outside, but inside, Lila felt the pressure growing every single day. The lie, once a daring game, now hung around her like an invisible chain, pulling tighter with each breath. Logan, on the other hand, was getting closer than ever. He brought Lila to family meetings, introduced her to influential friends, even posted subtle photos of the 2 of them on social media, as if she already belonged in the puzzle of his life. But someone started to notice. Heather Blake, a local reporter obsessed with scandals among Texas elites, saw a picture of Lila with Logan, and something about her seemed too familiar. She dug through old files, pulled public records, until she found a video from 2 years earlier. Lila, laughing with coworkers, wiping down tables in an Austin diner. The uniform was unmistakable. Heather started digging deeper. Meanwhile, Logan was battling shadows of his own. One day at the stables, he showed Lila an old leather chest locked with a rusted clasp. "It belonged to my older brother. He died in a helicopter crash. Ever since, my father decided I'd be the heir, but I never wanted this." It was the first time Lila saw him truly vulnerable. "And what do you want?" she asked, almost whispering. He looked at her for a long moment. "I want something I get to choose, not something I inherit." And that's when Lila realized Logan was just as much a prisoner as she was. She was trapped by a lie. He was trapped by a legacy, but what neither of them knew was that Heather had already written the headline. Heir's girlfriend actually a waitress in disguise? The past was finally knocking on the door. In the days that followed, something shifted between Lila and Logan. The tension of the secret still lingered, but there was also something else now, a raw, sincere, undeniable closeness. One humid afternoon, they ditched family obligations and drove to a hidden lake on the property. Logan jumped in first. Lila hesitated. "I never really learned how to swim." He held out his hand. "Trust me." And she did. There, between laughter and splashes, the space between them disappeared. Later, lying under the wide Texas sky, they really talked about things they'd never told anyone. Lila spoke about her absent father, her mother working 2 jobs, the constant fear of never escaping the place she was born. Logan spoke about his lost brother. The emptiness of growing up surrounded by luxury, but without a voice of his own. How his family's wealth felt more like a golden cage. With you, everything feels normal and somehow new, he said, staring at the sky. She turned to him. You were never normal, Logan. The kiss came naturally, inevitably, as if everything before had only been building to that moment. But while they were wrapped in that fragile paradise, Heather Blake was hitting publish on her gossip site. The headline read, exclusive. Heir's mystery girl is a former Austin waitress and not who she claims to be. Within hours, Lila Monroe's name would be echoing across the state of Texas. But at that lake, for one last moment, the world still belonged only to them. Logan's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Notifications, calls, messages, something was wrong. Deeply wrong. Lila was still in the guest room when she heard the door swing open hard. Logan walked in, phone in hand, his expression cold. Is it true? He asked, straight, no hesitation. Lila froze. You were a waitress in Austin? And you made all this up? She tried to speak, but her throat tightened. He held up the screen. The story was everywhere, gossip sites, blogs, local headlines. There was even a picture of her wiping down tables, smiling with co-workers, in full uniform. Lila's world collapsed in seconds. I just wanted to feel something different. It was impulsive, but then you showed up, and everything changed. So you lied from the start? Logan asked, voice low, wounded. Yes, but not about how I felt. He didn't respond. He just left, leaving Lila standing there, shattered. Hours later, Claire knocked on the door. You should be leaving now. Before my husband decides to call the lawyers. Lila packed in silence. She walked down the stairs without looking back. On the front porch, Logan's father stood waiting, arms crossed. You're clever, but you played dirty. This family has buried bigger scandals than you. And we'll bury this one too. She didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. As she passed through the front gates of the ranch, the sky turned gray. Rain began to fall, as if the world itself was mourning. The truth had come out, and with it, the end of everything that could have been. Austin had never felt so cold. Even with the summer heat, Lila felt the sharp wind of shame everywhere she went. At the diner where she used to work, people stared, some with curiosity, others with judgment. Some said she was clever. Others called her a gold digger. She didn't respond. She just put the apron back on, cleaned tables, and pretended she wasn't breaking apart inside. Logan didn't call, didn't text, nothing. His silence was crueler than any headline. But in that silence, Lila began to hear another voice, her own. One stormy night, while washing dishes during the late shift, the manager, Mariah, a woman who had known Lila since she was 17, pulled her into the supply room. You messed up. But you also dreamed. And most people don't even have the guts to do that. Those words broke something inside her and rebuilt her at the same time. The next day, Lila pulled an old notebook from the back of her closet. It was full of scribbled ideas, projects, dreams, tiny revolutions, and there, among coffee-stained pages and forgotten hopes, a plan was born. Not to win Logan back, but to win herself back. She reached out to nonprofits, companies, people. She began connecting low-income youth with opportunities in agriculture training, courses, jobs. If Logan wanted to run from his legacy, Lila wanted to build hers from scratch. And as she did, a familiar name began popping up in the news. Not hers, Logan Whitmore's. He had vanished from the public eye, turned down a multi-million-dollar deal, and rumor had it he was back in Austin. Their reunion wasn't like in the movies. No soft music, no running hug in slow motion. It happened in a simple coffee shop in downtown Austin. Lila was presenting her project to a small group of local investors when the door opened and Logan walked in. He looked different. Hair longer, shirt wrinkled. Eyes tired, but focused. She stopped speaking. The world stopped with her. "Can I talk to you?" he asked in front of everyone. Lila nodded silently. They stepped outside, under the city's overcast sky. "You lied to me, Lila, and I felt like a fool. But then, I started thinking." She didn't say anything. She was ready for the final goodbye. "You lied. But you were the only person who never tried to shape me into something I'm not." He took a deep breath. "My father wants me to sign a contract to expand the ranch internationally. Over $50 million. But that would mean becoming him, and I don't want that. So what do you want?" Lila asked, barely breathing. He looked at her the same way he did that very first night. "I want to build something of my own. With someone who doesn't pretend to have all the answers, but has the guts to start from nothing." The silence between them was broken by a distant rumble of thunder. "If there's still room, I want to walk beside you, Lila." She smiled with tears in her eyes. "Only if you promise never to leave me washing dishes alone again." And there, without an audience, without luxury, without fantasy, the Heir finally made his choice, and this time it was his own. 6 months later, Austin felt like a different city. Not because of the streets, or the buildings, or the traffic, but because something new was growing there. Inside a renovated warehouse, dozens of young people were taking part in workshops, courses, and training on sustainable farming, rural business, and social innovation. At the heart of it all, Lila Monroe. No longer a waitress, no longer an impostor, a leader. A founder, real, beside her. Logan. No blazer, no signed inheritance. No shadow of his father. Just a man who had chosen to step off the path laid out for him and walk his own. They weren't perfect. They still made mistakes, argued, learned. But now they were real. One afternoon, while Lila was helping a group plant herbs in the community garden, a girl named Tasha approached her. "Were you ever like us?" she asked, her arms covered in dirt. Lila smiled. "I was worse. But one day, I put on a dress that didn't belong to me. And I never wanted to live a life that wasn't truly mine again." Tasha laughed. "And did it work?" Lila looked at Logan across the yard, laughing with 2 boys. "I'm still writing the ending, but for now, it's working." And as the sun dipped behind the skyline, painting the sky with shades of hope, Lila realized, sometimes you have to pretend to be someone else, to discover who you really are.